This is a true story from many years ago, which was witnessed by Thomas, the head of the household who lived in the house. An Australian expatriate, his pseudonym, is being used at the request of Thomas. An old house stands in silence amidst the noise of the city. From the outside, it may not seem that there is a terrible secret hidden inside, but those who have once set foot in this house know its terrible dark history. Thomas had moved into the house with his wife Mary and 2 children, Jack and Elizabeth, only a few months earlier. After he lost his job, they were forced to take shelter in this old house due to financial crisis. At first, everything was normal, but slowly strange things started happening. First came the strange noises at night. The house was quiet, bathed in the dim glow of the moonlight. Suddenly, in the dead of night, a sharp knock echoed through the walls. Thomas's heart raced, pounding in his chest as he lay in bed, frozen for a moment. Who could it be at this hour? Reluctantly, he got up, thinking it must be a neighbor. He opened the door slowly, the hinges creaking, but to his surprise, there was no one there. The wind howled softly, but the street was empty. He stared into the darkness for a few seconds longer than usual, trying to convince himself it was nothing. He shut the door, feeling a cold shiver crawl up his spine. A few days passed. Everything became normal, but after a few days, the silence was broken again, and there were sounds, strange sounds, along with crying. Late at night, Thomas heard a soft, distant cry. It was unrecognizable at first, like the cry of a child somewhere far away. But the voice grew louder, clearer, as if coming from within the room. Seeing this, he told himself it was nothing, but still a fear was working in his chest. Every night it continues, the sound of children laughing, screaming, playing, late at night. Thomas sat up in bed, sweat beading on his forehead, the walls closing in around him. His logical mind told him it wasn't possible. Still, the fear was working because the words were clear. That night passed like this. After this happened a few times, he realized that this was not a common occurrence. Then began a more terrible incident. One morning he woke up to find that all the things on the kitchen table, all the clothes in the wardrobe had been turned upside down. The cup plate was broken and shattered. Mary screamed in terror. Thomas thought maybe the thief had come, but no sign of theft was found anywhere in the house. As the days went by, the events became more and more dire. One night, suddenly, the clothes in the room caught fire. Somehow the fire was extinguished, but the cause was not understood, because there was no source of fire in the house where the fire broke out. Then the bad smell started. A rotten smell suddenly started coming from different parts of the house. At first I thought maybe a rat had died and rotted, but nothing was found anywhere, yet the stench persisted. The family members also began to change gradually. Jack and Elizabeth often say they see strange apparitions. Sometimes Mary would sit quietly and say what was on her mind. Thomas noticed that the look in his wife's eyes had changed. One night, Jack screamed. He said that a black shadow entered her room. Thomas ran and saw that the boy's body was drenched in sweat. He is shivering, but there is no sign of shadow in the room. In between, we talked to various priests about this matter, but did not get any solution. From then on, Jack didn't want to sleep. He stayed up all night. Ink fell under his eyes. Didn't want to go to school. Almost stopped eating and drinking. Thomas took his son to the doctor, but there was no result. Elizabeth also began to change slowly. She used to talk strange things sometimes. One day she said, "Father, I know why this house is so haunted. There used to be a family here who practiced black magic. As a result of black magic, many people died here. Among them, there were many demonic spirits. Friends and close people of those demonic spirits are living here. They will not let anyone stay in this house peacefully." Thomas asked in surprise, "Where did you hear that, Mother?" Elizabeth said, "I didn't hear it, Father. I saw those demonic spirits are roaming here," they said. Thomas didn't know what to do. He tried hard to find another home, but his financial condition was so bad that it was not possible to go anywhere else. Moreover, the rent of this house was very low. One night, Thomas was awakened by a terrible scream. He saw Mary sitting on the bed and screaming. He hugged his wife and asked, "What happened?" "What did you see?" "I dreamed that a man was dragging me," said Mary, trembling. "He was saying that we must all die." Thomas could sense that the situation was getting out of control. He decided to leave this house anyway, but the terrible incident happened before that. That morning, Thomas was getting ready to go to office. Suddenly, he heard a loud noise from the roof. He ran to the roof. He went and saw that Mary was standing on the edge of the roof. "What are you doing?" shouted Thomas. Mary looked back, a strange look in his eyes. He said, "I can't take it anymore. They are calling me. I have to go." Saying this, he jumped down from the roof. Thomas shouted. He ran down, but by then it was too late. Mary is dead. The police came and investigated. They said it was a suicide, but Thomas knew there was something else behind it. He could sense that this house was responsible for it. After Mary's death, Thomas could no longer live in this house. He collected money as best he could and moved to another small flat. But he knew the memory of the incident would haunt him for the rest of his life. Years later, Thomas heard that 2 workers had died in an accident while trying to demolish the old house. And the person who was going to build a new apartment there fell down the stairs of his own house and became paralyzed. He breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that he was able to get out of that house with her children. Thomas thought he was freed from the house's curse, but he didn't know that the curse was not limited to the house. It spread to every member of his family. Jack still says sometimes that he sees shadows. Elizabeth still says strange things sometimes. And Thomas himself sometimes feels as if someone is calling him from behind. Thomas then realized that the terrible experience would never be erased from their lives.